Assalamu alaikum dear students. This is Department of English Government Postgraduate College Attic. I am Nasir Ali Shah. Students, we are reading the text of the third chapter of the book Why Boys Fail in College. It is written by an American writer, Herbert E. Hawks. Herbert E. Hawks is a famous and well-renowned educationist. In this chapter, he has analyzed the different causes and reasons of failure of boys at college level. Also, he gives some suggestions to the students who fail. He gives them some pieces of advice how they can pass. In the first paragraph of this chapter, which we have read in the previous lecture, the writer has divided the failing students into two categories. And those two classes or two categories of the failing students are those who try and those who do not try at all. The first reason or first cause of the failing students, or the first category of students who fail at college level, is such a student who suffers from some nervous activities. It means that such a student does not concentrate or cannot concentrate on the task assigned or the work which he has to do. He cannot concentrate on them, and he just wastes his time in useless activities which are called fidgets. And in the end, if he keeps on prolonging this habit, if he keeps on wasting his time day after day, in the end he fails. This is the cause, or this is the reason of some students, failure of some student. The writer suggests for such a students that no one else can eradicate such habits of the students. Others can only point out what the problem is. Others can give him some piece of advice, or others can guide him. But the student, such a student should himself take himself by the collar and cultivate in himself such habits which are balanced and poised and calm, and in other words, balanced and peaceful balanced and peaceful habits through which he can be able to concentrate on the task assigned. This is the first reason, or first category of the failing students. Today, in the second paragraph of this chapter, we are going to start reading the second category, or second cause of the failing students. A common cause of failure is a mistaken ambition for the boy on the part of his parents. Here the writer also discusses or gives us another example or another type of students which we can find around us in a large number in our society or in our colleges as well, that there are some students who fail not because of any mistake of their own, but it is just the mistake of their parents. A common cause. Common means very ordinary or very general. Cause means reason. Another very general reason of the failure of students is a mistaken ambition for the boy. Mistaken means based on misunderstanding, based on some misunderstanding. Ambition means desire or aim. So this is the mistaken ambition, or this is the aim or desire of the parents. On the part of the parents means on the side of the parents or belonging to the parents. This is the desire which is based on some misunderstanding, and it is the desire of the parents for the boy. It means that the parents mostly want their sons or want their children to read such and such subjects and to become so and so, or to go into different professions which the students, or we may say which the boy does not like. The writer expresses his own experience here. More often than I should wish. More often than I should wish mean it is not my wish, mean I do not want to see such cases, but it happens more often, or it happens in a large number, that I find a boy who is not showing any interest in his work. The writer, as I've explained earlier, that the writer himself is a famous educationist, and he had made a very hard and long and detailed investigation about the causes of the failure of students. That is why, in his experience, it is that most of the times he finds a boy who is not showing any interest in his work. Mean such a boy at college level who is not studying with interest and who is not trying to do it with any distinction. Distinction mean with special success, or to study so hard as to get some distinction in the class or in the college or in the university. Distinction mean getting some position, first, second. It means that sometimes the writer finds such a boy who is not taking interest in his studies, and even if he is studying, he is not trying to do a lot of hard work. He is not trying to get some distinction or some position. He is just reading like an ordinary student, because he is following a direction. And the reason of such a student's disinterestedness in his education is that because he thinks that he is following a direction mapped out by his parents. Direction mean an end, or the way which he is following. Mapped out mean it is planned or chalked out by his parents. That runs counter to all of his interests and abilities. Runs counter to means it goes against, goes in another direction, goes in opposite direction to all his interests and abilities. Mean if the such a student has some abilities, or if he has some ability to become a teacher, or he has some ability to become a doctor or engineer, but his parents want him to study some specific subjects in order to join some specific profession. That is why such a student who is forced by his parents to study some specific subjects for a specific field of profession which he does not like, so naturally he would not work very hard to study those subjects, and in the end he would fail, because he thinks that he is following a direction which is chalked out or mapped out by his parents, and it is such a way or such a direction which runs counter to, mean it goes against his abilities and interests. I have made a number of very warm enemies among the parents of the college students. Here the writer tells us his own experience. The writer says that he has made, I means the writer himself. He is talking about himself. He has made a number of mean in a large number of very warm enemies among the parents of college students. Means the writer expresses his own experience, that he tells the parents of the students. What does he tell them? By telling them that I am certain that, he tells their parents, the parents of the students, that he is sure, certain means sure, he is sure that the good Lord never intended their son to be a physician or a dentist or an engineer. Good Lord means God. The writer says that the parents of those students become my enemies. They become angry at me. They behave just like my enemies. Means I have made them my enemies whenever I tell them that God never intended, means God does not want their son to be a physician. Physician means doctor, or a dentist or an engineer. It means that when the writer comes to know that such a student who is not taking interest in his studies, who is not studying very hard or trying to do some hard work to get any distinction, when the writer asks such a student, and the student tells the writer that he does not take interest in those subjects because he does not like those subjects or the profession which his parents want him to follow. If his parents want him to become a doctor or an engineer or a dentist, the student does not like these professions and he does not like to study such subjects. Rather, he wants to become something else and he wants to study some other subjects. when the writer tells the parents of such a student that they should not force their sons, they should not compel their sons to study specific subjects of their own choice instead of the choice and interest and ability of those students, the parents of those students become the warm enemies of the writer. So the writer tells them that God never intended, because the writer, being an experienced teacher and being an educationist, he understands very well, he can understand that if such a student is forced by his parents to study some specific subjects which he does not like, definitely and ultimately the result would be that such a student would fail. And even if he does not fail, he would not be able to pass those subjects with distinction in order to become a doctor or an engineer as per the desires of his parents. So the writer, when tells the parents that God never intended means the writer is sure that in such a way, such a student would not be able to become a doctor or an engineer according to the wishes of his parents, and definitely he would fail. Whenever the writer tells the parents of the students, they become his warm enemies. Students, this is enough for today's lecture. We shall continue reading the text in our next lecture.